Snowboarding is a recreational activity and Olympic and Paralympic sport that involves descending a snow-covered slope while standing on a snowboard, attached to a rider's feet. The development of snowboarding was inspired by skateboarding, sledding, surfing and skiing. It was developed in the United States in the 1960s, became a Winter Olympic sport at Nagano in 1998 and first featured in the Winter Paralympics at Sochi in 2014. Its popularity in the United States peaked in 2007 and has been in a decline since. History. Modern snowboarding began in 1965 when Sherman Poppen, an engineer in Muskegon, Michigan, invented a toy for his daughters by fastening two skis together and attaching a rope to one end so he would have some control as they stood on the board and glided downhill. Dubbed the Snurfer by his wife Nancy, the toy proved so popular among his daughter's friends that Poppen licensed the idea to a manufacturer, Brunswick Corporation, that sold about 1 million Snurfers over the next decade. And, in 1966 alone, over 500,000 Snurfers were sold. In the early 1970s, Poppen organized snurfing competitions at a Michigan ski resort that attracted enthusiasts from all over the country. One of those early pioneers was Tom Sims, a devotee of skateboarding. As an 8th grader in Haddonfield, New Jersey, in the 1960s, Sims crafted a snowboard in his school shop class by gluing carpet to the top of a piece of wood and attaching aluminum sheeting to the bottom. He produced commercial snowboards in the mid-70s. Articles about his invention in such mainstream magazines as Newsweek helped publicize the young sport. The pioneers were not all from the United States. In 1976, Welsh skateboard enthusiasts John Roberts and Pete Matthews developed their own snowboards to use at the local dry ski slope. Also during this same period, in 1977, Jake Burton Carpenter, a Vermont native who had enjoyed snurfing since the age of 14, impressed the crowd at a Michigan snurfing competition with bindings he had designed to secure his feet to the board. That same year, he founded Burton Snowboards in Londonderry, Vermont. The snowboards were made of wooden planks that were flexible and had water ski foot traps. Very few people picked up snowboarding because the price of the board was considered too high at $38. But eventually Burton would become the biggest snowboarding company in the business. The first competitions to offer prize money were the National Snurfing Championship, held at Muskegon State Park in Muskegon, Michigan. In 1979, Jake Burton Carpenter came from Vermont to compete with a snowboard of his own design. There were protests about Jake entering with a non-snurfer board. Paul Graves and others advocated that Jake be allowed to race. A modified, open division was created and won by Jake as the sole entrant. That race was considered the first competition for snowboards and is the start of what has now become competitive snowboarding. It was also the first competition to offer prize money. Ken Kampenga, John Asmussen and Jim Trim placed first, second and third respectively in the standard competition with best two combined times of 24.71, 25.02 and 25.41, and Jake Carpenter won prize money as the sole entrant in the open division with a time of 26.35. In 1980 the event moved to Pando Winter Sports Park near Grand Rapids, Michigan because of a lack of snow that year at the original venue. As snowboarding became more popular in the 1970s and 1980s, pioneers such as Dmitry Yermilovich, Jake Burton Carpenter, Tom Sims, and Mike Olson came up with new designs for boards and mechanisms that slowly developed into the snowboards and other related equipment that we know today. USA. In 1982, the first USA national snowboard race was held near Woodstock, Vermont, at Suicide 6. The race, organized by Graves, was won by Burton's first-team rider Doug Bouton. In 1983, the first World Championship halfpipe competition was held at Soda Springs, California. Tom Sims, founder of Sims Snowboards, organized the event with the help of Mike Chantry, a snowboard instructor at Soda Springs. In 1985, the first World Cup was held in Zurich, Austria, further cementing snowboarding's recognition as an official international competitive sport. In 1990, the International Snowboard Federation was founded to provide universal contest regulations. In addition, the United States of America Snowboard Association provides instructing guidelines and runs snowboard competitions in the U.S. Today, high-profile snowboarding events like the Winter Games, Aeronam Style, US Open, Olympic Games and other events have broadcast worldwide. Many alpine resorts have terrain parks. At the 1998 Winter Olympic Games in Nagano, Japan, snowboarding became an official Olympic event. France's Corinne Ruby was the first ever to win an Olympic gold medal for women's snowboarding at the 1998 Olympics, while Canadian Ross Rebagliati was the first ever to win an Olympic gold medal for men's snowboarding. Initially, ski areas adopted the sport at a much slower pace than the winter sports public. Indeed, for many years, there was animosity between skiers and snowboarders, which led to an ongoing skier versus snowboarder feud. Early snowboards were banned from the slopes by park officials. For several years, snowboarders would have to take a small skills assessment prior to being allowed to ride the chairlifts. It was thought that an unskilled snowboarder would wipe the snow off the mountain. In 1985, only 7% of U.S. ski areas allowed snowboarding, with a similar proportion in Europe. As equipment and skills improved, gradually snowboarding became more accepted. In 1990, most major ski areas had separate slopes for snowboarders. Now, approximately 97% of all ski areas in North America and Europe allow snowboarding, and more than half have jumps, rails and half-pipes. An excellent year for snowboarding was 2004, with 6.6 million participants. An industry spokesman said that 12-year-olds are outriding adults. The same article said that most snowboarders are 18 to 24 years old and that females constitute 25% of participants. There were 8.2 million snowboarders in the USA and Canada for the 2009-2010 season. There was a 10% increase over the previous season, accounting for more than 30% of all snow sports participants. On the 2nd of May 2012, the International Paralympic Committee announced that adaptive snowboarding would debut as a men's and women's medal event in the 2014 Paralympic Winter Games taking place in Sochi, Russia. Styles. Since snowboarding's inception as an established winter sport, it has developed various styles, each with its own specialized equipment and technique. The most common styles today are freeride, freestyle, and freecarve race. These styles are used for both recreational and professional snowboarding. While each style is unique, there is overlap between them. See also List of snowboard tricks. Jibbing. Jibbing is technical riding on non-standard surfaces which usually includes performing tricks. The word jib is both a noun and a verb, depending on the usage of the word. As a noun, a jib includes metal rails, boxes, benches, concrete ledges, walls, vehicles, rocks and logs. As a verb, to jib is referring to the action of jumping, sliding or riding on top of objects other than snow. It is directly influenced by grinding a skateboard. Jibbing is a freestyle snowboarding technique of riding. Typically, jibbing occurs in a snowboard resort park but can also be done in urban environments. Free riding. Free riding communicates the concept of dynamically altering various snowboarding styles in a fluid motion, such that the combination becomes a style unto itself. Freestyle snowboarding is any riding that includes performing tricks. In freestyle, the rider utilizes natural and man-made features such as rails, jumps, boxes, and innumerable others to perform tricks. It is a popular all-inclusive concept that distinguishes the creative aspects of snowboarding, in contrast to a style like alpine snowboarding. Alpine snowboarding, sometimes called free carving, this takes place on hard-packed snow-groomed runs and focuses on carving linked turns. Much like surfing or longboarding, little or no jumping takes place in this discipline. Alpine snowboarding consists of a small portion of the general snowboard population that has a well-connected social community and its own specific board manufacturers. Alpine snowboard equipment is a ski-like hard-shell boot and plate binding system with a true directional snowboard that is stiffer and narrower to manage linking turns with greater forces and speed. Shaped skis can thank these free-carved snowboards for the cutting-edge technology leading to the creation. A skilled alpine snowboarder can link numerous turns into a run, placing the body very close to the ground each turn. Similar to a motage turn or water ski carve, depending on factors including stiffness, turning radius and personality, this can be done slowly or fast. Carvers make perfect half circles out of each turn, changing edges when the snowboard is perpendicular to the fall line and starting every turn on the downhill edge. Carving on a snowboard is like riding a roller coaster, because the board will lock into a turn radius and provide what feels like multiple G's of acceleration. Slope-style competitors perform tricks while descending a course, moving around, over, across, up or down terrain features. The course is full of obstacles including boxes, rails, jumps, jibs. Slope-style contests consists of choosing your own line in a terrain park using a variety of boxes, jibs and jumps. To win a slope-style contest, one must pick the best and most difficult line in the terrain park and have a smooth flowing line of tricks performed on the obstacles. Overall impression is also a huge factor in winning a slope-style contest. The rider who lands the hardest tricks will not always win over the rider who lands easier tricks. Big air competitions are contests where riders perform tricks after launching off a man-made jump built specifically for the event. Competitors perform tricks in the air aiming to attain sizable height and distance, all while securing a clean landing. Many competitions also require the rider to do a trick to win the prize. Not all competitions call for a trick to win the gold. Some intermittent competitions are based solely on height and distance of the launch of the snowboarder. One of the first snowboard competitions where Travis Rice attempted and landed a double backflip backside 180 took place at the 2006 Red Bull Gap session. Halfpipe. The halfpipe is a semicircular ditch dug into the mountain, a purpose-built ramp made up of snow, with walls between 8 and 23 feet. Competitors perform tricks while going from one side to the other and while in the air above the sides of the pipe. Border cross, also known as Border X and Snowboard X, is a very popular but relatively recent winter sport, starting in the 1980s and earning its place as an official Winter Olympic sport in the 2006 Turin Games. In border cross, several riders race down a course similar to a motorcycle motocross track. Unlike traditional head-to-head races, competitors use the same terrain, sometimes resulting in accidental collisions. Snowboard racing. In snowboarding racing, Riders must complete a downhill course constructed of a series of turning indicators placed in the snow at prescribed distances apart. A gate consists of a tall pole and a short pole, connected by a triangular panel. The racer must pass around the short side of the gate. There are three main formats used in snowboard racing, including single-person, parallel courses, and multiple people on the course at the same time. Competitions. Some of the largest snowboarding contests include the Air-Am style, the X-Trail Jam, Burton Global Open Series, Shakedown, FIS World Championships, FIS World Cup, the Winter 10th Games, and the Winter Dew Tour. Snowboarder magazine's Super Park event was created in 1996. Over 150 of the world's top pros are invited to advance freestyle snowboarding on the most progressive terrain parks. Part of the snowboarding approach is to ensure maximum fun, friendship and event quality. Reflecting this perspective of snowboarding, you can find anti-contests including are an important part of its identity, including the Holy Only revival at the summit at Snoqualmie, the Nate Shoot Hawaiian Classic at Whitefish, the original anti-cons, the World Quarter Pipe Championships and the Grenade Games. The United States of America Snowboarding Association features three different divisions which include Alpine, Freestyle, and Boardicross. Alpine consists of giant slalom and slalom, which is a competition in which the agility and ability to make sharp turns of the snowboarders are tested. Freestyle consists of slopestyle and haypipe. In Boardicross, the idea is to be the first snowboarder down the mountain, where everyone is racing each other through an obstacle course of harsh turns and wipeout. Potential is very likely. The USASA has 36 regional snowboard series in which anyone can compete. Subculture. The snowboarding way of life came about as a natural response to the culture from which it emerged. Early on, there was a rebellion against skiing culture and the view that snowboarders were inferior. Skiers did not easily accept this new culture on the slopes. The two cultures contrasted each other in several ways, including how they spoke, acted, and their entire style of clothing. Snowboarders first embraced the punk and later the hip-hop look into the style. Words such as dude, gnarly, and shred the GNAR are some examples of words used in the snowboarding culture. Snowboarding subculture became a crossover between the urban and suburban styles on snow, which made an easy transition from surfing and skateboarding culture over to snowboarding culture. The early stereotypes of snowboarding included lazy, grungy, punk, stoners, troublemakers, and numerous others, many of which are associated with skateboarding and surfing as well. However, these stereotypes may be considered out of style. Snowboarding has become a sport that encompasses a very diverse international-based crowd and fan base of many millions, so much so that it is no longer possible to stereotype such a large community. Reasons for these dying stereotypes include how mainstream and popular the sport has become, with the shock factor of snowboarding's quick takeoff on the slopes wearing off. Skiers and snowboarders are becoming used to each other, showing more respect to each other on the mountain. The typical stereotype of the sport is changing as the demographics change. Safety and precautions. Like some other winter sports, snowboarding comes with a certain level of risk. The injury rate for snowboarding is about 4 to 6 per 1,000 persons per day, which is around double the injury rate for alpine skiing. Injuries are more likely amongst beginners, especially those who do not take lessons with professional instructors. A quarter of all injuries occur to first-time riders and half of all injuries occur to those with less than a year of experience. Experienced riders are less likely to suffer injury, but the injuries that do occur tend to be more severe. 2/3 of injuries occur to the upper body and 1/3 to the lower body. This contrasts with alpine skiing where 2/3 of injuries are to the lower body. The most common types of injuries are sprains, which account for around 40% of injuries. The most common point of injury is the wrists. 40% of all snowboard injuries are to the wrists and 24% of all snowboard injuries are wrist fractures. There are around 100,000 wrist fractures worldwide among snowboarders each year. For this reason, the use of wrist guards, either separate or built into gloves, is very strongly recommended. They are often compulsory in beginners classes and the use reduces the likelihood of wrist injury by half. In addition, it is important for snowboarders to learn how to fall without stopping the fall with the hand by trying to push the slope away, as landing a wrist which is bent at a 90-degree angle increase the chance of it breaking. Rather, landing with the arms stretched out and slapping the slope with the entire arm is an effective way to break a fall. This is the method used by practitioners of judo and other martial arts to break a fall when they're thrown against the floor by a training partner. The risk of head injury is 2 to 6 times greater for snowboarders than for skiers, and injuries follow the pattern of being rarer, but more severe, with experienced riders. Head injuries can occur both as a consequence of a collision and when failing to carry out a heel-side turn. The latter can result in the rider landing on his or her back and slamming the back of his or her head onto the ground, resulting in an occipital head injury. For this reason, helmets are widely recommended. Protective eyewear is also recommended as eye injury can be caused by impact and snow blindness can be a result of exposure to strong ultraviolet light in snow-covered areas. The wearing of ultraviolet absorbing goggles is recommended even on hazy or cloudy days as ultraviolet light can penetrate clouds. Unlike ski bindings, snowboard bindings are not designed to release automatically in a fall. The mechanical support provided by the feet being locked to the board has the effect of reducing the likelihood of knee injury. 15% of snowboard injuries are to the knee, compared with 45% of all skiing injuries. Such injuries are typically to the knee ligaments. Bone fractures are rare. Fractures to the lower leg are also rare, but 20% of injuries are to the foot and ankle. Fractures of the talus bone are rare in other sports but account for 2% of snowboard injuries. A lateral process talus fracture is sometimes called snowboarder's ankle by medical staff. This particular injury results in persistent lateral pain in the affected ankle, yet is difficult to spot in a plain X-ray image. It may be misdiagnosed as just a sprain, with possibly serious consequences, as not treating the fracture can result in serious long-term damage to the ankle. The use of portable ultrasound for mountainside diagnostics has been reviewed and appears to be a plausible tool for diagnosing some of the common injuries associated with the sport. 4 to 8% of snowboarding injuries take place while the person is waiting in ski lift lines or entering and exiting ski lifts. Snowboarders push themselves forward with a free foot while in the ski lift line, leaving the other foot locked on the board at a 9 to 27-degree angle, placing a large torque force on this leg and predisposing the person to knee injury if a fall occurs. Snowboard binding rotating devices are designed to minimize the torque force, quick stance being the first developed in 1995. They allow snowboarders to turn the locked foot straight into the direction of the tip of the snowboard without removing the boot from the boot binding. Avalanches are a clear danger when on snowy mountain slopes. It is best to learn the different kinds of avalanches, how to prevent causing one and how to react when one is going to happen. Also, when going out onto the snow, All who practice an activity with increased chances of injury should have a basic first aid knowledge and know how to deal with injuries that may occur. Snowboarding boots should be well fitted, with toes snug in the end of the boot to minimize movement. Padding or armor is recommended on other body parts such as hips, knees, spine, and shoulders. To further help avoid injury to body parts, especially knees, it is recommended to use the right technique. To acquire the right technique, one should be taught by a qualified instructor. Also, when snowboarding alone, precautions should be taken to avoid tree wells, a particularly dangerous area of loose snow that may form at the base of trees. Some care is also required when waxing a board, as fluorocarbon waxes emit toxic fumes when overheated. Waxing is best performed in a ventilated area, with care being taken to use the wax at the correct temperature. The wax should be melted but not smoking or smoldering. In a study conducted to examine the types of snowboarding injuries and changes in injury patterns over time, data was collected on injured snowboarders and skiers in a base lodge clinic of a ski resort in Vermont over 18 seasons and included extensive information about injury patterns, demographics, and experience. In conclusion of the study, the highest rate of injury was among young, inexperienced, female snowboarders. Injury rates in snowboarders have fluctuated over time but still remain higher than skiers. No evidence was found that those who spent more time in terrain parks are overrepresented in the injury population. Media, films. Snowboarding films have become a main part of progression in the sport. Each season, many films are released, usually in autumn. These are made by many snowboard-specific video production companies as well as manufacturing companies that use these films as a form of advertisement. Snowboarding videos usually contain video footage of professional riders sponsored by companies. An example of commercial use of snowboarding films would be The White Album, a film by snowboarding legend and filmmaker Dave Sohn about Shaun White, that includes cameos by Tony Hawk and was sponsored by PlayStation, Mountain Dew and Burton Snowboards. Snowboarding films are also used as documentation of snowboarding and showcasing of current trends and styles of the sport. However, sometimes the snowboarding industry is not supportive of all snowboarding-themed films. In 2013, The Crash Reel, a feature-length documentary by filmmaker Lucy Walker about former Shaun White rival Kevin Pearce, premiered on the film festival circuit to critical acclaim and was subsequently broadcast on HBO. Using Pearce's career-ending traumatic brain injury and subsequent recovery as a backdrop, the film examines the physical dangers inherent to pro snowboarders and other extreme sports professional athletes under pressure by sponsors and the media to perform increasingly spectacular feats. Although there are significant references to various brands in the film, Walker is adamant that the snowboarding industry did not sponsor the film in any way and in fact has been unsupported. Despite the film's mainstream media success, snowboard magazines are integral in promoting the sport, although less so with the advent of the internet age. Photo incentives are written into many professional rider sponsorship contracts, giving professionals not only a publicity but a financial incentive to have a photo published in a magazine. Snowboard magazine staff travel with professional riders throughout the winter season and cover travel, contests, lifestyle, rider and company profiles, and product reviews. Snowboard magazines have recently made a push to expand the brands to the online market, and there has also been a growth in online-only publications. Popular magazines include Chronicle, Transworld Snowboarding, Snowboarder Magazine, Snowboard Magazine, Snowboardum, Yobid, Whitelines, Pleasure Method, On Board, White Magazine, Snowboard Canada, NZ Snowboarder, Pyramid Magazine, and Snowboard Colorado. Video games. Snowboarding video games provide interactive entertainment on and off-season. Most games for this genre have been made for consoles, such as the Xbox and PlayStation. A plethora of online casual snowboarding games also exist, along with games for mobile phone. More recently, snowboard simulators have been implemented as a way to practice during the off-season or a way to learn altogether.